So that's how attack rolls work. Hi, I'm No Nat Ones. You caught me in the middle of some light reading. Oh, this? This is my new bathrobe. What's underneath it? It's my new Geek Tropical shirt!
That's right, y'all. Geek Tropical is back sponsoring the channel yet again. If you've been following this channel for years, you know that Geek Tropical is an amazing partner of the channel, and usually at least once every year or so, we get them in here, we show off some of their new designs so that you go over and support a small, incredible business. Geek Tropical is your one-stop shop for nerdy apparel, specifically Hawaiian shirts, button-downs, bucket hats, dresses, and curvy button-downs.
For people like me.
Geek Tropical is loaded top to bottom with nerdy designs for all of their apparel, and not just Pathfinder and tabletop RPG stuff like this amazing Dungeon Daddy shirt. No, they've got amazing things like math and science shirts. Really anything that falls under geek or nerddom, they have designs for. They've even had some board game crossovers like Exploding Kittens or Munchkin. Look at this cute little Munchkin shirt with all the cute monster designs on it. I absolutely love it. I haven't played Munchkin in like a decade, mainly because I hate Munchkin, but I love this shirt. And I have to put emphasis on this because it's so important to me. Geek Tropical uses absolutely no AI-generated content on any of their apparel, and all of the artists that have ever worked to create designs for them, A, get a kickback commission every time their design is sold, and B, actually have a place on a full part of their website where they show off all of their artists. I cannot tell you how cool that is of Geek Tropical to do. Going that extra mile is why I love this company and why I am proud to sponsor them day after day. If you order right now from Geek Tropical, you can get free shipping on all orders of $50 or more. So you buy a couple shirts for you, maybe something for a little special someone in your life, and you can get free shipping on your order. And a little birdie told me there might be a Labor Day sale coming up, so keep your eyes peeled on the Geek Tropical website for that. You all know I love Geek Tropical. I wear their shirts in every other video. I get comments constantly asking, where do you get those cool nerdy shirts? GeekTropical.com. I always appreciate y'all sponsoring the channel. Thank you so much, Geek Tropical. On to the Commander Guide. The Commander is another intelligence-based martial class, which I'm already a huge fan of. You know I love characters with weird ability modifiers. Now all we need is a spellcaster who uses strength. Please, Paizo, I need this. 8+ Constitution modifier hit points per level, and expert in Perception, Reflex, and Will saves, and trained in Fortitude. Honestly, a really solid saving throw spread for a martial, and it's rare for a martial's only trained proficiency to be Fortitude, so the fact that their Reflex and Will, which in my experience are a lot more common for damaging effects, pretty good. Trained in Society, Warfare lore, and 2+ their Intelligence modifier in additional skills, which because they're an intelligence class, means you're gonna probably get 5 or 6 more skills out of this, which is incredible. Trained in simple and martial weapons, and trained in all armor. You're looking at a solid, heavy armor martial weapon wielding martial, or if you want to go more dex-based, you can get away with some solid light armor. Also trained in their class DC. Shocker. And then you scroll down to Commander's Banner, and you see a feature that takes 3 paragraphs to explain. Allow me to simplify. You start the game with a banner. Now, this does not have to be a literal banner. They say it can be a backpack, it can be a big totem you wear. All that it has to be is a light or negligible bulk weight item that is clearly visible on your person. You can hold it in your hand, you can attach it to a shield, you can even attach it to your weapon if you want to. As long as it is on your person and visible to your allies, it is active. And you can spend 1 minute at any time to turn something else into your new banner. You really like the skin of that troll you just killed? Cool, spend a minute, that's your banner now, you sicko. As long as you have your banner and it is visible, then you and all allies within 30 feet just get a permanent +1 status bonus to will saves against fear effects, you know, because you're all emboldened by the sight of your banner. And hilariously, if your banner is ever stolen or destroyed while active, then you and all of your allies become frightened 1. Hilarious. And the final paragraph says that you can't just place your banner down, and you need actual feats to gain the ability to put the banner down and have it continue functioning as your banner. Yes, this is my original take. Why do you think it's not? Just keep in mind that while unattended in this way, it can be destroyed, and it has the normal hit points and hardness of whatever object it's made out of. So if it's made of wood, it's not too hard to destroy. Now, the tactics are where the commander really shines. This is your core feature. This is what you're going to be spending most of your actions doing, is issuing tactics to not only your allies, but also yourself to get some really cool synergistic effects with the rest of your party. There are 5 kinds of tactics. Offensive and mobility tactics are both available right at level 1. Expert, Master, and Legendary tactics can only be taken after achieving a certain character level. Similar to a wizard's spellbook, you have your tactics folio, and you start the game with 5 tactics in your folio, and during your daily preparations, you can choose any combination of 3 of them to prepare. On top of that, you also prepare 2 plus your intelligence modifier in squadmates. Squadmates are just allies that have trained to react to your tactics. If you issue a tactic, only squadmates can benefit from it. So typically it's going to be your entire party. Also, you don't count against your own max number of squadmates, but you are your own squadmate. This is important to specify because in Pathfinder 2e, you are not your own ally. But for the commander, they are their own squadmate. Now, what's really nice about the commander is you can swap out tactics whenever you want with any other tactics from your folio. All you have to do is spend 10 minutes drilling with all of your squad mates, and you can swap out as many as you want. You can still only have 3 per day, but you can swap any of those 3 out with any of the other ones from your folio. It's really nice. And this is really important at higher levels because some tactics are limited use. They might say once per day or once per hour, and you can swap those out. So if you use your once per day tactic and then you have 10 minutes of downtime, you can swap that one out and put in a tactic that either still has uses left per day or can be used any number of times. It allows them to sort of use all of their really good tactics up front and not worry about having dead tactic slots, and I think that's fantastic design. But what is very important to note is unlike a spellcaster who's getting new spells every level, the commander does not get new tactics very often. In fact, unless you take the tactical expansion feat, you only get more tactics when you unlock Expert, Master, and Legendary. Otherwise, you are stuck with the 5 you start with. It even says that if you find another commander's folio, it doesn't help you learn new tactics because they're all shorthand and unique to that commander. So tactics are just a really awesome feature you can use to combo with your allies constantly that, unless they say they can only be used a certain number of times per day, are infinite use, can be swapped out whenever you want during the day, but make sure those 5 you pick at level 1 are the ones you want to keep, because you will not be getting new ones very often. Also at level 1, alongside a level 1 class feat and the shield block reaction, they also get drilled reactions, which is insane. Once per round, when you issue a tactic, Once per round, when you issue a tactic, one ally who is going to benefit from that tactic gains a free extra reaction that can only be spent on that tactic immediately. Typically, most of your tactics are going to require allies to spend their own reactions to benefit from them, but you just give one ally a free reaction that doesn't spend their own to do the bonus you're doing. There are tactics that give people free attacks, and they don't even have to spend their own reaction on it. You say, hey, barbarian, you see that guy? Break his neck. And he goes, I don't know. And you say, free reaction. And he goes, okay. Sure, you're spending your own actions to let other people attack, but if there's something like a fighter or a barbarian on the team who can deal more damage than you can effectively spend your actions to give them more attacks. And remember, because it's a reaction, it's at their full bonus. Multiple attack penalty doesn't matter. The commander is incredible at just letting other members of the party do more. And imagine if you have something like a fighter and a barbarian, for example. That fighter has reactive strike. He might want to save his reaction for that. Low-level barbarians, they don't really have many reactions. So what you do is you spend your tactic. You give the fighter the free reaction, so the fighter and the barbarian can both act on your tactic, and then the fighter, because they got the free reaction, still have their reactive strike at the ready. The commander's awesome, and we're not even past level 1. So let's get past level 1, shall we? Level 2 skill feats, level 3 general feats and skill increases, and warfare expertise. Not only does this automatically increase your warfare lore to expert proficiency automatically without spending a skill increase, but it also allows you to recall knowledge on almost any creature with warfare lore, which is insane because warfare lore is going to automatically be at your highest available proficiency. Now, there's a caveat to this. You cannot use warfare lore to recall knowledge about actual lore information on creatures, but you can specifically use it to gain tactical knowledge. Highest or lowest saving throws, resistances or weaknesses, offensive capabilities. It's great. You analyze the battlefield, you figure out the best plan of attack on enemies, and you use that information even if you don't know what you're fighting. Also, you can use warfare lore for your initiative. That's crazy! You're an intelligence-based class! Level 5 is Ancestry feats, as well as expert proficiency with simple and martial weapons, and critical specialization effects with those weapons. Now, level 7 is massive. Sure, you get weapon specialization for a little bit of bonus damage, but more importantly, you get expert tactician, and this does so much. Your class DC increases to expert proficiency. You gain master proficiency in warfare lore, and you finally gain access to expert tactics. Not only that, but you can add 2 new tactics to your folio, including from those expert tactics, and you can now prepare 4 tactics per day. That is an insane level for the commander. Oh my gods. Level 9, expert in fortitude. Level 11, expert in all armor, as well as the armor specialization effect of those armors, as well as master will saves, which, remember, once you're master in a saving throw, all normal successes become critical successes. Level 13 is master perception and master proficiency with weapons. Level 15 is master in reflex saves. Successes become critical successes. It's also greater weapon specialization for a bit more damage, and master tactician. It's basically the same as expert tactician, except now your class DC is master proficiency, your warfare lore is legendary proficiency, you can add 2 more tactics to your folio, you can prepare 1 more tactic per day, and you know you have access to the master tactics. Boy, this will sound a lot more impressive when we actually know what the expert, master, and legendary tactics can do. Level 17 is master proficiency in armor, and level 19 is legendary tactician. Do I need to go over all of this again? Probably not, but I will anyway. Legendary proficiency in class DC, 2 more tactics into your folio, 1 more tactic prepared per day, and they can be legendary tactics. Good stuff. And with all the base class features out of the way, let's talk about what makes the commander, and look into the tactics. We're going to be starting off with the mobility tactics, and then after that, the offensive tactics. These are all tactics you can take right at level 1. Starting off with defensive retreat, which right away has a new trait we need to talk about: brandish. Certain tactics, probably to keep them from being overpowered, have the brandish trait. If that trait is on a tactic, it means you have to be actively doing something with your banner, which means you, the commander, even though you are your own squad mate, do not get to benefit from this tactic. Specifically, if the tactic is granting any free actions or reactions, you, the commander, may not take part because you are actively brandishing. You can see from some of the other tactics on this page, they do not all have the brandish trait. I think it's going to be that the stronger tactics are going to have brandish, and the weaker ones you can do yourself as well. One final thing to say about tactics is that you can issue more than 1 tactic per round, but an individual squad mate can only react to 1 tactic per round, even if they have additional reactions, such as the free one you gave them. So even if you give somebody a free reaction and they react to your tactic, you can't tell them to do something else and have them spend their second reaction on that. 1 tactic per character per round. And it makes sense that this has brandish, otherwise it would be insane. For 2 actions, defensive retreat allows all allies currently affected by your banner to step 3 times as a free action. That's insane. This doesn't even spend anybody's reaction. They just get to step 5 feet 3 times. If you have an elf with that 1 ancestry feat, this allows them to move 30 feet. Granted, every step must be away from danger. If you're fighting an enemy, this must get them away from it specifically. So while it's not the most reliable form of moving around, it'll never be helpful for like flanking or anything like that, it's still an amazing action economy right out the gate. 2 actions to give everybody around you 3 actions for free is nuts. Also, if I ever accidentally say ally while talking about these tactics, assume I mean squad mates. Allies are squad mates, but not all squad mates are allies. I'm going under the assumption your entire party is your squad mates, so I might accidentally mix up the two words, but they all mean squad mates. Gather to me, it's a little bit weaker in my opinion than defensive retreat, but it doesn't have the brandish trait, which means you, the commander, can also benefit from it. For one action, you and all squad mates, note that it doesn't say within your aura, just all squad mates can stride as a reaction, with the caveat that everybody striding must end their movement inside your banner's aura. So even squad mates that are outside of your aura can stride as long as they end inside of it. This is a decent way to get everybody back together. People are spread out among the battlefield. You know, the cleric and the barbarian are 80 feet away from each other. You can gather to me and have them both move a lot closer towards each other and get the party more cohesive again. Pretty solid to have in the back pocket. I'm going to clump mountaineering training and naval training into the same feat because they are just, for one action, all squad mates gain either a climb speed or a swim speed until the start of your next turn. Really good if you're just trying to swim across a river or climb up a mountain, because you can just do this every single turn. You are your own squad mate, so everybody climb and then you spend 2 actions climbing. That's fantastic. Additionally, even if you're not using either of these tactics, if you have them prepared, you can use warfare lore in place of athletics for the corresponding skill check, even if you don't activate the tactic, which I don't really know why you wouldn't activate the tactic. You'd always be better off activating it and then climbing 20 feet rather than trying to roll climb checks, but Passage of Lines is okay. For one action, all squad mates within your banner's aura can swap positions with an adjacent ally. I'm not the biggest fan of this limitation. Obviously, they can't just swap positions anywhere, but just adjacent allies swapping positions doesn't sound like it's going to be that useful most of the time. Maybe if you've got like a barbarian behind the wizard who's in front of an enemy, the barbarian and the wizard can swap, and that's cool. I just feel like this one is going to be incredibly niche and situational compared to the other tactics so far. And Protective Screen. This one has Brandish, so you, the commander, cannot make use of it. For 2 actions, you pick any squad mate. They don't have to be in your banner's aura. They stride as a reaction. If they end adjacent to a squad mate that was already in your aura, that second squad mate will not provoke reactions from any spells or ranged attacks they make until the end of their next turn, or until the first squad mate is no longer adjacent to them. This is a lot for very little. I guess if your wizard is caught in melee between like 3 enemies and he's in your aura, the barbarian can walk up and stand next to the wizard and say, "You're good, cast your spells, they can't hurt you." That's cool, but this is a really niche tactic. Overall, a lot of the mobility tactics are pretty niche. I think Gather to Me and Defensive Retreat are obviously the 2 winners here. Everything else is very niche and specific situation oriented, especially those last 2. Passage of Lines and Protective Screen feel very specific when you would ever need those specific abilities to happen. So instead, let's get into offensive tactics and see how this goes, starting with coordinating maneuvers. One action Brandish, so the commander can't benefit from it, but you pick one squad mate, they take a step action as a free action, and then if they want to and they're adjacent to an enemy, they can spend a reaction to reposition that enemy. This isn't bad, you know, it's going to be as a reaction, so their reposition isn't going to be affected by multiple attack penalties, so it's always going to be a max athletics check, which could be good. Again, a little bit niche, but I don't like that they have to already be in your aura. Overall, reposition can be cool, but the fact that this all has to happen within your aura is incredibly limiting. On the other hand, it is only one action, so you could stride twice into a good position and then let your ally reposition. It's fine. However, I think Double Team is just coordinating maneuvers, but better. It is 2 actions, but you signal to one squad mate who is currently adjacent to an enemy, and as a free action, they shove or reposition the target. Shout out to the damaging shove Guardian and being able to shove as a free action with Double Team, love that. If the shove or reposition is successful and the enemy ended adjacent to a second squad mate, that squad mate may spend their reaction to attack the target that is now within their reach. This is a very convoluted setup to give somebody else an attack of opportunity. The problem is it does rely on a first squad mate who has good athletics proficiency, moving a creature into attack range of a second squad mate. This requires a lot of setup, and you'll see that there's a much easier option down the line. Not even down the line, it's also level 1, it's just a different tactic. And it is phenomenal, albeit a little bit hard to set up because it costs 2 actions, it has the brandish trait, it has the incapacitation trait, and before the start of this current turn, you and your allies must have dropped an enemy to 0 hit points. Now, even though this does have the brandish trait, it does specifically say that you and each ally may take a step action as a free action. So that actually circumvents the brandish trait, meaning yes, you, the commander, can take part in this step action. After you've all stepped, all allies that are within 10 feet of any squad mate must make a will save against your class DC. If they fail, they are fleeing for 1 round, which is insane. Remember, fleeing is not the same as frightened. Fleeing means they must spend all of their actions to get away from the source of fleeing as expeditely as possible, which means no careful step actions. No, they're running. And if you've got a fighter with reactive strike or you're high enough level that other characters have reactions, that's insane. On a crit fail, not only are they fleeing for 1 round, but they become frightened too, just lowering all their checks and DCs by 2. This is an insane ability, and it makes sense that it has incapacitation. Pincer attack is some solid setup. For 1 action, you and all squad mates can spend their reaction to step. Afterwards, if squad mates are adjacent to an enemy, that enemy becomes off guard to all melee attacks from everybody who responded to pincer attack. So this is tough, because it's basically going to spend your entire party's reactions, but especially at low levels, that's not bad. A lot of classes have no reactions at low levels, so spending it to just auto off guard anybody is amazing. Would it have been overpowered to make them off guard to all attacks? I don't know. It would be nice if this worked on ranged attacks. Maybe it's for balance sake that it's only melee. It's still really good for the rogues and fighters and barbarians in your party. Reload. For 1 action, all squad mates can spend their reaction to reload. That's pretty cool. Additionally, if you are actively leading a siege weapon crew, you can use this tactic to have the crew reload, which is kinda cool. Shields up. For 1 action, all squad mates within your banner's aura can spend their reaction to raise their shield. This is fine, but remember, if you're spending your reaction to raise your shield, that means you can't use your reaction to shield block unless you are getting a free reaction from the commander. So if the commander's like, champion, Pookie, put it up, then they can give the champion the free reaction and raise it that way, which is fine. This is even better, obviously, if the commander themselves has a shield. It also works with parry weapons and the shield cantrip, and I think that is worth its weight in gold, allowing your spellcasters, who never get reactions, to shield as a reaction with their cantrip. That's insane. Strike hard is 2 actions for a reason. You spend 2 actions to have any other ally strike as a reaction. You're basically just giving them a reactive strike by spending 2 of your own actions. Does that sound horrible? Maybe, but it's actually not, especially if you're already in melee. Picture this. You are a commander with a 2-handed sword. You swing, you hit, cool. With your other 2 actions, what are you gonna do? Attack at -5 and then -10? Or let the barbarian get another attack at their full bonus? I actually find it really funny that this feat has the brandish trait, because why would you ever spend this on yourself? It wouldn't circumnavigate multiple attack penalty. It's cool, you know. I think this works even well on a like mid to short range commander with like a short bow, because you're whatever 30 feet away. That's still within range of your banner. So you shoot with your short bow, and then you tell your fighter to attack. You can look at this as 2 actions, make another attack, get your full attack bonus, ignore multiple attack penalty, and that's insane. And this is the one I'm saying is just outright better than double team in my opinion. It's the same number of actions, but you don't have to rely on a successful athletics check just to get an attack off. You can just say, hey, attack. And it's almost so good that I feel like all the other tactics should have been better to compensate. Every single commander is going to take strike hard, and I don't think it's because strike hard is too powerful. In my opinion, it's because a lot of these tactics are just underpowered in different ways. The only other one I think that compares in power is End It. And finally, Tactical Takedown. For 2 actions, 2 of your squad mates stride up to half their speed. If they both end adjacent to an enemy, that enemy makes a reflex save against your class DC or falls prone. Cool. And those are all the level 1 tactics. A lot of these are unimpressive, and I think that is by design. They're useful, they have niche situations, but the problem is that Strike Hard is just so good and universal. Strike Hard will always be useful. I almost wish they made Strike Hard a core part of the commander's kit that they didn't have to take. If I was going to homebrew this on the spot, I would remove shield block from the commander, and I would give all commanders strike hard, and strike hard wouldn't count against your prepared folio of tactics. So keep in mind, all the tactics we're about to cover are only available from level 7 onward, starting with Alley-oop. Alley-oop is honestly fantastic. You pick one squad mate within the aura of your banner that is currently holding or wearing an accessible consumable, and as a free action, they toss it to any other squad mate within your aura. The second squad mate must spend their reaction to catch and use the consumable given to them. This is a really basically one action from the commander to move a consumable around and use it all at once, which is pretty cool. The downside is if the other person chooses not to spend their reaction, then the consumable lands on the ground in their space, which I feel like if it's a vial, that thing's shattering. The really cool thing for me is if you do this with activated ammunition. If you're unaware, certain ammunition in Pathfinder must spend an action to sort of turn it on and make it magical for a brief moment before loading it into your weapon and using it. And if the consumable being alley-ooped is magical ammunition like that, then as part of catching it and using it, you turn it on and load it into your weapon, all as part of the alley-oop reaction, which is pretty sick. Buckle Cut Blitz is a little unimpressive, but it gets bonus points for being infinitely reusable, I suppose. For 2 actions, you pick 2 squad mates that are currently in your banner. They both stride up to their speed, and any enemy they pass during this movement must make a reflex save against your class DC or become Clumsy 1, Clumsy 2 on a crit fail. Don't get me wrong, Clumsy is a great condition, lowering armor class and reflex saves by 1, plus if they're a dex-based attacker, lowering that, it's fantastic, but it's a lot of actions. Also, this is spending not only 2 of your actions, but 2 of your allies' reactions, and this movement does provoke reactions. If these enemies have reactive strike, then your allies might get chopped just for trying to apply Clumsy 1 on a saving throw the enemy might not even fail. It's a really heavy risk and action sink for only -1, which I just think, especially at level 7, there are so many better ways to get this condition and better ways to use your actions. Now, Demoralizing Charge, I think, is the first incredible tactic we've seen so far. For 2 actions, you pick 2 squad mates that are in the aura of your banner. Both of them spend their reaction to stride. If they end their stride adjacent to an enemy, they may strike that enemy. If they hit that enemy makes a will save against your class DC to become Frightened 1 or Frightened 2. And it doesn't stop there. They can either target 2 different enemies with this, or if both squad mates target the same enemy and one of them hits it, it gets a -1 circumstance penalty to the save. If both strikes hit, it's -2, and if either of those strikes were a critical hit, it's -3 to their saving throw, and that's actually insane because once again, this can be done every single turn. You are now turning 2 actions and 2 reactions into, what's the fighter feat? Intimidating Strike. You're spending 2 actions to give 2 allies Intimidating Strike, which is normally a 2-action attack on its own. Not only that, if they target the same creature, there's a penalty to the save. This is insane. This is actually wild, because remember, both of these attacks are going to be at their full attack bonus, which means if you're like a ranged commander, you can attack at your full bonus. Demoralizing Charge, both of your allies get to stride first, and then both attack at their full bonus. You can look at this. If you include your own 1-action attack, 3 actions target the boss, 3 people all attack at full bonus. If they hit, they might frighten the boss. Insane. That's going to be hard to beat. That's going to be so hard to beat. Slip and Sizzle, in my opinion, needs something. It needs a little zhuzh. As it stands, for 2 actions, you pick 2 squad mates within your aura. One of them must already be adjacent to an opponent. That squad mate rolls athletics to trip the target. If the trip is successful, the second squad mate may cast any spell of 2 actions or less that deals damage as a reaction. And this sounds really cool up front. You know, the spellcaster gets to use a full spell as a reaction. The problem is that if the spellcaster does this, they become slowed 1. They lose an action on the following turn because they cast a 2-action spell as a reaction. On top of that, they don't even get their reaction back. So sure, you got to cast it ahead of time, but you're losing one action, and you're losing your ability to respond to the commander next turn. I think that's stupid. I think Slip and Sizzle would have been perfectly balanced, as if the trip is successful, they cast the spell as the reaction. That's the end of the ability. Because Demoralizing Charge gives 2 full bonus strikes that frighten. But giving the spellcaster an extra cantrip? That's too much. I guess it doesn't have to be a spell attack roll. You could technically use this to cast Fireball and other area of effect abilities, so maybe I'm just not big brain enough to see this as the powerhouse that it really is. But again, even if it's an area of effect ability, it's going to catch your squad mate. The tripped creature must be within the area. I don't know. It's a very complicated feat because it just interacts with every single spell in the game that deals damage, so let me know in the comments if there's some insane situation where this is the best tactic in the game. Stupefying Raid is the same as the one that moves and inflicts Clumsy, except it inflicts Stupefied one instead. Take the high ground. You pick one of your squad mates in your aura and they stride up to their speed. If they end adjacent to another squad mate, then they can spend their reaction to immediately long or high jump 25 feet horizontally or 15 feet straight up. This increases at legendary proficiency. Overall, it's fine. At least the second squad mate doesn't have to spend their reaction, and at worst, this does just give a free action stride, so it's usable.
Warning. Copious amounts of bitching detected in the next 4 minutes. You have been warned.
Moving on to the Master Tactics, which are only available from level 15 on. Keep that in mind. 90% of commanders will never even see these tactics. The bigger they are, for one action, you pick a squad mate that is within your aura and is adjacent to an enemy. They attempt to shove, reposition, or trip that enemy. Now, all other squad mates that are either adjacent to the original squad mate or the target can spend their reaction to assist in this athletics check. This grants a circumstance bonus to the check equal to the number of assisting squad mates and increases the size the original squad mate can use the ability on. Normally you can only use athletics abilities on creatures that are one size category bigger than you. If one person helps, they can use it on 2 size categories bigger. If 2 people help, 2, whatever. You understand. The more people, the bigger the target. You mainly do this for the circumstance bonus. It's pretty good. It's a good way to convert your action into a reaction that you can just give the friend to give them an athletics check when it's not their turn. It's fine. It's neat. It just sucks that it can't be used to grapple. Why not grapple? You can reposition, shove, and trip. Where's grapple? That's like the best one. I want you to keep in mind that these are level 15 abilities. So when I read Mirrored Wall, I am really let down. For 2 actions, once per 10 minutes, if one squad mate is either in a bright light or has a source of bright light like a lantern, then you can pick any number of squad mates with shields or the shield cantrip. They all cast the cantrip or raise their shields to reflect this light at one enemy within 60 feet. That enemy makes a fortitude save against your class DC and becomes blinded for 1 round if they fail. If they crit fail, it's still only blinded for 1 round and then dazzled for 3. Is this a level 15 ability? I guess the more squad mates providing shields, each additional one lowers their saving throw by -1. That's kind of cool, but overall is a 2 action, potentially like 4 reaction ability really worth blinded for 1 round and then a 10-minute cooldown? If you could use this every turn to keep blinding someone, that'd be kind of sick, constantly redirecting the light to always be in their eyes. I think that's level 15. 1 round of blinded on a fail? I'm sorry if I'm being harsh here, it just doesn't feel good as a once per 10-minute ability, I guess. I guess it doesn't have incapacitation, so this might work on bosses. But compared to something like Piranha Assault, why would you ever take Mirrored Wall? 1 action, once per 10 minutes, pick 1 enemy within your aura and signal all squad mates. All squad mates for the next 1 full minute ignore an amount of that creature's resistance equal to the commander's level? That's insane! Imagine looking at an enemy and saying, hey, all of your resistances are reduced by 15. That's crazy! Even an adamantine golem only has resistance 20 to physical. That gets rid of almost all of it. That's incredible! Why does Mirrored Wall suck so much? Pop, drop, and lock is good. For 2 actions, you pick 3 squad mates within your aura who are all adjacent to an enemy. Those allies can either strike, trip, or grapple a target, and they can perform these actions in any order. So ideally, you want your athletics guy to grapple them to make them off guard, and have the other two make strikes at their full bonus. Honestly, even though this has a once per 10 minutes, am I crazy for thinking that this is kind of just worse than intimidating charge or whatever with the demoralizing, frightening? Oh, it's so much worse. Each specific action can only be attempted once? You can't even let everybody strike once per 10 minutes. Just take the demoralizing charge. Why do you need to grapple and trip and only one person gets to strike? That just feels bad. And it's, the 10-minute frequency feels completely unnecessary here. Sorry, this isn't even a tier, that's a D tier tactic. I hate that. Now, ready, aim, fire is what you want out of a tactic like this. For 2 actions, pick up to 3 squad mates. They can all reload as a free action and then spend their reaction to make a ranged strike against a target. And this even works for spellcasters as long as they have a damaging cantrip that has a range of 30 feet or more. The cool thing is that doesn't even need to be a spell attack roll. If they've got a long range saving throw cantrip, they can use that. This is sick. Ready, aim, fire is a good tactic. Why is mirrored wall so bad? All right, roaring charge. We need to talk. Maybe demoralizing charge from the expert tactics was just too good, but this is just slightly better. Not even necessarily slightly better. Roaring charge, 2 actions, once per 10 minutes, because all master tactics are a once per combat thing, I guess. You signal up to 3 squad mates, and as a reaction, they stride up to twice their speed. That is good. Everybody's running, 50 to 60 feet just off this one reaction. Well, I guess 3 reactions. At the end of this movement, all creatures that are 10 feet away or closer to any of those 3 squad mates must make a will save, becoming frightened 1 on a success, frightened 2 on a failure, frightened 3, and fleeing on a critical failure. That is good. This is basically the fear spell put into a tactic, and it's multiple targets. 3 people move. If you can get them less than 10 feet away from every enemy in the encounter, that's incredibly powerful. But also, this has incapacitation. You know what doesn't have incapacitation? Demoralizing charge, which lets 2 people stride and attack. What? I swear, demoralizing charge it's just the best tactic. Sure, we haven't touched the level 19 legendary tactics, which I swear better be the best thing I've ever read, because oh my gosh, I see no reason to do anything but demoralizing charge every single turn, even once you have master tactics. And the legendary tactics, there are only 3 of them, and they're all once per day. Starting off with Bloody Guillotine. Now this is what I'm talking about. You signal up to 3 squad mates within your aura. They all stride up to half their speed, and all of them can choose whether to trip or strike. But the first time a creature that is currently prone takes damage from one of these strikes, they make a fortitude save against your class DC or die. Normal failure is death. Now, it's incapacitation, so this is not really going to work on a boss unless they crit fail, but that's still incredible. Now, the biggest limiting factor here is that all 3 squad mates can only attack one specific enemy. They can't all go out and attack multiple enemies, which I think is a letdown. If you have the setup for, like, your wizard casts Earthquake and knocks 3 enemies prone, so your fighter, rogue, and barbarian all walk over to the prone enemies, and each one has a chance to be immediately killed, that is such a cool 5-person team-wide combo. Why does it gotta be only single target? It's level 19. Come on, Paizo. It's still a really cool feat, and you can still trip and execute immediately. Additionally, any enemies who witness someone dying this way do make a will save against your class DC, become sickened 1 for 1 round. Weirdly not frightened. Weirdly, they're not frightened by this. They're just sickened. Sickened 2 on a crit success, which don't get me wrong, it's stronger than frightened and they're redundant to both put on, but I don't know. It's a really good feat. It's not even a feat. It's a tactic. Oh god, we're not even at the feats yet. I've been recording for 1 hour and 5 minutes. I'm gonna die. Cry Havoc has a weird issue where if you aren't playing in a strangely large party or have like NPC companions, this is a garbage tactic. Assuming you're in a casual game of a typical 4-person party, it's not good. For 3 actions, all squad mates in your banner may stride up to twice your speed toward one specific target. During this movement, If any squad mate enters a space that is adjacent to any enemy, not just the original target, any enemy, that enemy makes a basic fortitude save against your class DC or takes 4d6 damage per person that passed them. So you can see that if you only have 3 squad mates, because this has the brandish trait, which means the commander is not running in with his team, which kinda sucks, then at most, on normal failed saves, you're looking at 12d6 damage at level 19. Sure, maybe you might get lucky and hit multiple targets, but this is only really good if you have the max number of squad mates, which remember is 2 plus intelligence modifier, so it might be 7 or 8. If you've got 8 squad mates between player characters and NPCs, and they all run past a target, now that's incredible. That's, what, 32d6 on a failed save? That's great. But if you're just a party of 4, skip it. Additionally, they're immune to it for 24 hours, which kinda sucks, but on the upside, if they critically fail, they're deafened because you're hooting and hollering. I'll take the execution guillotine one. And then there's Executioner's Volley, also known as the correct choice for your legendary tactic. For 2 actions, once per day, you and all squad mates in your aura, every single one, gets a free ranged strike as a reaction against a single target, including spellcasters who can cast a spell of 2 actions or less that deals damage. Granted, it does have to be a cantrip. The nice thing is that all of this damage entirely is added together before applying any kind of resistances. This also has the death trait. If the creature dies from the Executioner's Volley, then all other enemies within your aura must make a save or become frightened too. It's good. Like, it's a lot of damage. Being able to overcome resistances is great. I don't know how it combines different damage types. It says combine the damage from all attacks. Does that mean that the electricity damage from, like, just say electric arc off the top of my head doesn't combine with the piercing? Because it doesn't become electric piercing damage. It doesn't actually elaborate how that adds together. I'm guessing the electric stands on its own, but if you all deal piercing, it all adds together. It's good. It's a lot of damage on reactions, which is hard to come by. Is it level 19 good? Once per day, I'd say no. Once per encounter, I'd say absolutely, it's great. But it's very possible I'm missing some important context for some of the viability of these tactics, and that context is going to come from the commander's class feats. So I apologize if I was too harsh on these. I really don't want to be so negative. You know I love this game, and you know I love drooling over the content, but as it stands, on the universal usage of a lot of these tactics, they don't feel all that great. So let's see if the feats can help us out. Oh god, there's 3 more tactics! I'm leaving that in. I don't care, I'm leaving that in. That is raw no-net. Insta Ballista. Before you can even use this tactic, during your daily preparations, you must divvy out 8 bulk worth of ballista parts to any number of squad mates. And in order to use this tactic, all of those squad mates carrying the ballista pieces must be within your aura. When you use this as a free action, all of those squad mates may stride as a free action and must end their movement no farther than 10 feet away from any other squad mate involved. They quickly assemble a ballista and make a ranged attack roll using your attack proficiency against a creature up to 200 feet away. This also gains a bonus to the attack based on the number of squad mates involved. Remember, this has the brandish trait, it cannot be you. So in a perfect world, you have 4 squad mates, each carrying 2 bulk of ballista parts. They all come together, they assemble it, and they fire it off with your proficiency plus 4. This deals 10d12 piercing damage to the target and then cannot be used again until the next day. This is cool. I like it. Once again, I would almost prefer this be once per encounter. Sure, 10d12 is a lot of damage, but you're also level 19. You know, there are kineticist abilities that they can just spam. You know, at level 19, what's Tremor doing? At level 19, an Earth Kineticist Tremor is dealing 10d8. So being able to do 10d12 with a slightly higher accuracy once per encounter would feel a lot better than once per day. Sanguine Revitalization. For 2 actions, you pick any number of squad mates in your aura, and they all stride up to half their speed toward a singular target, specifically only if those squad mates have piercing or slashing weapons. So if you're using a hammer, you don't get to play. You wait your turn. All squad mates who end their stride within melee reach of the target all get to strike as a reaction. Once all the strikes are done, as long as the target took any damage, they must make a fortitude save against your class DC, and if they fail, a lot happens. First, they get a penalty to the saving throw equal to the number of successful strikes that hit them up to a max of -4. If they fail, they take 10 persistent... Bit my lip! Persistent bleed damage! And all squad mates within 20 feet of the target heal 10d6 hit points. Okay, we're done. Let's talk about Valkyrie's Charge so we can move on to feats. I personally believe Valkyrie's Charge is by and large the single greatest tactic available at level 19. Once per day for 3 actions, you heal all squad mates in your banner's aura for 80 hit points. If they were currently unconscious, they may stand and grab their weapon as a free action. After that, as a free action, all affected squad mates can stride up to double their speed, and then if they want to and they're within reach of an enemy, spend their reaction to strike. It doesn't say melee strike. This is incredible. This is 80 hit points to everybody. Everybody gets up. After getting up with their weapon in hand, everybody moves towards the enemy. I didn't say you do have to move towards the enemy, but as long as you're within reach of the enemy, whether it's a melee or a ranged strike, everybody attacks them. That's insane. This is the only one I understand why is once per day. Party-wide heal, party-wide reposition, party-wide attacks. It's insane. This is a level 19 tactic that I think the rest of them do not compare to. And with that, let's talk about class feats. Starting off with Armored Regiment Training, which makes any armor you're wearing weigh 1 bulk less than is listed, and you get to ignore the speed penalty while traveling. This is really important because, remember, you're an intelligence-based class. You're not always going to be able to pump up your strength, so being able to ignore some of this is nice. Now, it doesn't get around the check penalties and the speed penalty in combat, but while not in combat, you can be wearing armor that's too heavy for you and not slow down your entire party, which is really nice. It even lets you sleep in your armor so you're ready for the inevitable ambush. Combat assessment. For 1 action, you strike a target. If you hit, you get to recall knowledge as a free action. If you critically strike, you get +2 to that check, and you can only do this to an individual target once every 24 hours. It's just a great way to feel like you're not missing out on potential damage and gaining that recall knowledge in. You're gonna find that a lot of commander feats are 1 action attacks plus something else, which is fantastic design. Most of their tactics do cost 2 actions, especially the really, really tasty ones, so being able to attack, get something more on top of your attack, and then issue a 2-action tactic is going to be your ideal combat rotation. Commander's Companion is awesome. You get a young animal companion, and it counts as a squad mate without counting against your total squad mates, which is crazy to me, because especially when you think about some of the tactics that interact with all of your squad mates, this is just a bonus target to interact with. And there's a unique rule with the Commander's Companion. If you command an animal on your turn, trade one of your actions to give them 2 actions, they also gain a reaction they can use to respond to your tactics. So keep that in mind. If you don't actively command your companion, they will not be able to respond to your tactics. And the final thing you can do is place your banner on your animal companion, making it a little bit more mobile so you no longer need to be attached to it. Pretty cool. Deceptive tactics is pretty fun. You can roll warfare lore in place of deception when it comes to creating a diversion and feinting. Additionally, your warfare lore proficiency now qualifies you for deception skill feats that require a certain deception proficiency. If you're master in warfare lore, you can take master deception skill feats even if you're untrained in deception, and you get the lengthy diversion skill feat, which basically says you create a diversion which makes you hidden and you stay hidden even at the end of that turn. Officer's Medical Training. You become trained in medicine and you can use intelligence instead of wisdom on your medicine checks. It also gives you the battle medicine skill feat. Can't go wrong here. Especially for some commanders, if you're dumping wisdom, that's an inherent +3 or +4 to your medicine checks forever. Plant Banner. For 1 action, you slam your banner into the ground. While it is like this, it is no longer an emanation based off of you, but a burst based off of the corner of the square you put your banner down. When you put your banner down this way, all allies within the burst gain 4 temporary hit points. This goes up to 8 at level 4, 12 at level 8, and so on and so forth at levels 12, 16, and 20. While 4 temporary hit points doesn't sound like a lot, as long as your allies are within the banner's area, they get those temp hit points back every single turn, which is insane. While your banner is planted, it is a 40-foot burst, which means 40 feet in all directions from it. So if you can defend your banner, you're gaining 4 temporary, basically like force field hit points every single turn on every ally. The problem is that A, your banner's not moving anymore. If you want to pick your banner up, it is an action from you. And the big number B, enemies that are adjacent to the banner can just pluck it for 1 action. They don't have to break it. They don't have to wrestle it from you. If they're next to an unattended banner, you and your allies are all now frightened and gaining none of your banner benefits. So it's risky. It's a great benefit if you plant it down and your allies start benefiting from it, but the moment an enemy gets in and breaks it, you're in trouble. Adaptive stratagem looks so weird, and that's actually why I'm going to explain it alongside a level 14 feat, contact with the enemy. Adaptive stratagem is simple. When you roll initiative as a free action, you can swap any of your prepared mobility, offensive, or expert tactics with any tactic in your folio. The level 14 upgrade, contact with the enemy, allows you to replace master and legendary tactics. Now you might be asking yourself, why are these separate feats? Master and legendary tactics both have frequencies, once per 10 minutes for master and once per day on legendary. As it stands, if you roll initiative and you still have a legendary tactic prepared, but it's already spent its once per day, you can't swap it with adaptive stratagem. You can swap something else with your legendary tactic, but once that tactic is in, unless you spend 10 minutes of downtime to swap them out, it's a dead slot in your tactics. This is a very niche kind of build where you want to be able to swap things out immediately, especially because you can just do it for 10 minutes. So you're effectively doing a 2 feat tax to remove the need to spend 10 minutes to re-drill, and I'm not a big fan. But if you're in a constant like battle, like you're on the war front and you're having 4 combats in a row and you want to tag in all your different tactics and tag them out once they're spent, it's a good idea to have. Defensive swap. If you or an adjacent ally are currently being targeted by an attack, then as a reaction, you can swap positions and have the other person take it. Either have an ally take the damage for you or you take the damage for them. Keep in mind, this happens as the attack is targeted, not after the attack roll has been rolled. So you can't know what the enemy rolled to hit before you swap places. You have to commit first. You don't even know if it was a crit or not. Guiding shot is, as always, incredible. For 1 action, using a ranged weapon, strike a target. If you hit, the next ally to attack them gets a +1 circumstance bonus to their attack roll. If you crit, it's a +2 instead. I've said this 1,000 times, but circumstance bonuses to attack rolls are one of the rarest things in Pathfinder 2e, and they're amazing. Keep in mind, you're the commander. For 1 action, you can guiding shot directly into the tactic that allows an ally to attack, meaning you get to choose who's getting this bonus. You don't have to wait for whoever's turn comes up in initiative. You have control, meaning the commander has the best usage of guiding shot in the game. Rapid assessment. When you roll initiative, recall knowledge is a free action. It's not bad. It's just good action economy. Setup strike is another fantastic option for the 1 action strike that does something. Strike an enemy. If it's successful, they're off guard against the next attack from an ally. It's pretty obvious that Setup Strike is useful for the melee commander and Guiding Shot is useful for the ranged commander. What's very important to know about Setup Strike, though, is that it just says off guard against the next strike. It could be a ranged attack, it could be a spell attack. Putting someone off guard for that ranged rogue or that spellcaster who really wants to hit with Disintegrate, that can do some fantastic work. Tactical expansion. You add 2 more tactics to your folio. Remember, this does not let you prepare more per day. You just have more memorized, and you can take this feat multiple times, adding 2 more tactics every time you do. Banner Twirl is pretty decent. For 1 action, you and all adjacent allies have concealment from all ranged attacks until the start of your next turn. That's just a 20% chance for those attacks to miss you outright. Pretty good if you're all bundled up. Just don't get fireballed. Banner's Inspiration is insane. For 1 action, you reduce everybody's frightened value by 1, and they get a new saving throw against any mental effect currently affecting them. This is just incredible. If they're confused, if they're controlled, if they're some other condition I can't think of right now, it's free saving throws all the way down. And they're only immune to this for 10 minutes. On average, you're going to get to use this at least once every encounter. That's great. Observational analysis. If you use combat analysis on a creature that has been targeted by you or an ally in the previous round, then you get +2 to the recall knowledge from it. If your combat assessment was a critical hit, +4 instead. Shielded recovery. If you're wielding a shield, it counts as having a free hand when it comes to battle medicine and treat wounds. And when you battle medicine somebody, they actually gain a +1 circumstance bonus to armor class. This bonus also applies to reflex saves, and it lasts until the start of your next turn or until that ally is no longer adjacent to you. Just a nice little bonus way to protect someone right after healing them. It's fantastic. Battle medicine is already an incredible use of actions. Making it better, it just makes it better. Unsteadying Strike is fantastic, especially when comboed with the more athletics-focused tactics. For one action, you strike an enemy. If you hit them, then their Fortitude DC against being grappled, shoved, and repositioned, as well as their Reflex DC to resist being disarmed, are all decreased by 2 until the start of your next turn. Now, this does need to be a melee strike, so you can't do this with a ranged weapon, but it's still really good if you're combining it with someone who wants to reposition them, or you just have somebody grapple-focused on your team. This is a phenomenal ability. Battle-tested companion. Your animal companion becomes mature, and whenever the banner is on it, your banner's aura actually becomes 40 feet instead of its usual 30. Claim the Field is the biggest big energy I've ever seen in a role-playing game. As long as your banner is attached to a thrown weapon, like a javelin, you can throw it and have it plant itself anywhere within your weapon's first range increment. And remember, when it does, it becomes a burst, and all allies within that burst gain the temporary hit points of Plant Banner. Additionally, you are so confident that nobody will touch your banner that any enemy who tries has to make a will save against your class DC. If they fail, they lose the action and can't bring themselves to touch your banner. If they crit fail, they're fleeing from your banner, which is hilarious. Now, this is incapacitation, so maybe don't do it against the boss, but if you're fighting 5 enemies that are 2 levels lower than you, then yeah, chuck that thing in there, support your allies, and just scare all the enemies. It's hilarious. Efficient preparation. You can prepare 1 additional tactic per day. That's really damn good. Keep in mind, you cannot take this feat multiple times. You can take this once and once only. Reactive Strike. It sure is Reactive Strike. Shield Warden. As long as your shield is raised, you can use the shield block reaction not only on yourself when you take damage, but any adjacent ally if they take damage from a strike as well. Defiant Banner. For one action, you and all allies within your banner's aura gain resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage equal to your intelligence modifier. Is this ever going to be a crazy amount? No. It'll be probably 4 right now and then 5 at level 10 or level 15. And that's about it. 5 resistance for one action? If you're fighting creatures that only deal that damage, that's actually pretty goated. Officer's Education is so cool. When you take this feat, you become trained in 2 skills you're not trained in, and you become an expert in 1 skill you are trained in, and you gain any general feat, and a new language. You can take this feat twice, and I think that's really funny. You can just be stupid smart. Rallying Banner. For one action every 10 minutes, you can restore 4d6 hit points to all allies within your banner. Keep in mind, this does use allies, so you do not heal yourself. The healing goes up by 1d6 every 2 levels. Not too bad. You can use this out of combat, but because of the lack of adrenaline out of combat, it only heals for half as much, which is still pretty cool. Pathfinder has proven it is not scared of infinite out of combat healing anymore, so that's just really solid. A nice little AoE burst heal for one action once per combat. You can't complain. Unrivaled Analysis. When you use Rapid Assessment to recall knowledge when you roll initiative, you can now recall the knowledge on 4 creatures at once instead of just 1. That's a really good upgrade. Battle-Hardened Companion. Your animal companion becomes nimble or savage and can now take 1 action to stride or strike even if you didn't command it to. And when it does, it also still gains a reaction to react to your tactics even though you didn't command it. That is a massive upgrade to your animal companion. Once you have that, you can start doing things like Setup Strike and a 2-action tactic with your animal companion taking 1 free action, gaining a reaction that it can use to react to that tactic. The action economy overfloweth. But that feat is competing with drilled reflexes. Now, whenever you give out tactics, you can now give out 2 reactions per round for free instead of 1 from your base class feature. That's incredible. Standard Bearer Sacrifice. As a reaction, if somebody is currently being hit by a ranged attack, but you are also within that ranged attack's range, you can wave your banner to try to redirect the attack to you. The attacker makes a will save. If they succeed, the attack goes through on your ally as normal. If they fail, they attack you instead. If they crit fail, they attack you, and you gain a +2 circumstance bonus to your armor class, basically a free raised shield, even if you don't have a shield. That's really, really cool. Now, the problem here as well, though, is that because it's a circumstance bonus, it won't stack with your shield. So this is actually best used on a commander that doesn't have a shield. Targeting Strike is a direct upgrade to Setup Strike and Guiding Shot. Either of them, if they successfully hit a target, then the next ally to attack that target deals bonus precision damage equal to your intelligence modifier. That's not bad. You're already using these to set up your allies to hit more accurately. Now they just deal 5 bonus damage every single time. You can look at that. If you're using Guiding Shot or Setup Strike every single turn, that is just +5 damage for the rest of your life every single turn. That's not bad. But Fortunate Blow is insane. And obviously, if you took Targeting Strike, you're taking Fortunate Blow, because when you use Guiding Shot or Setup Strike, the next ally to attack, on top of the benefits those feats already give, they also get advantage on the attack roll. So now every single turn, you set up one of your allies. Let's say you're using Setup Strike, the target is now off guard, the ally now gets advantage, and if they hit, they deal 5 bonus precision damage. That's wild. Technically, all for one action. Perfected Evaluations, I'm gonna say it, that's too much. When you use Rapid Assessment, you can now recall knowledge on 6 creatures. Why? Reactive Interference, I think, is the coolest feat available to the commander. I don't think it's the strongest, I don't think it's overpowered, I just think it is a really cool thing to pull out of your back pocket. As a reaction, if a creature is about to use their reaction and you're adjacent to them, you say no and you cancel it. If they're a higher level than you, you have to make an attack roll against their armor class, and if you succeed, it negates their reaction. If your wizard tries to run away and a soldier's about to reactive strike him, if they're your level or lower, you just cancel his reactive strike entirely and he loses his reaction. If he's a higher level than you, you get to attack, and if you hit, obviously you don't deal damage, but you still stop it. And I think that is just such a cool, it's like a physical counter spell. Counter Strike. Global Offensive. We already covered contact with the enemy, so Desperate Resuscitation, which is insane. For 3 actions, you raise dead. I'm not kidding. Sure, it's a DC 40 medicine check. Sure, you have to be a master in medicine. Sure, they can't have been dead for more than 3 rounds. Sure, their body still needs to be in mostly one piece. But it's still just a 3-action raise dead. Their wounded condition remains the same as it was when they went down and died, but that's still incredible. And they're only immune for 1 day. And it's not like you can't use this multiple times per day either. You can use this on each of your allies once per day. As long as they don't get eviscerated by a disintegrate spell or something, you can raise dead on every ally once per day. That's crazy. And honestly, DC 40 at level 14, if you're a master, remember, you're using intelligence instead of wisdom anyway, you're fine. That's not that hard. My level 15 kineticist rolled a 53 on athletics the other day. That's totally doable. Quickening Banner. For 1 action once per 10 minutes, all creatures within your banner become quickened to stride or strike on their next turn. That's just good action economy. Spend one of your actions, give everybody else +1 action. Damn good. Confusing Commands actually has Deceptive Tactics as a prerequisite, and I actually think for once that's fair, because this is an insanely powerful ability. For 2 actions, you issue such confusing orders to all of your allies that the enemies caught hearing it have to make a will save against your class DC or become confused for 1 round. 2 rounds on a critical failure, that's insane. Remember, confused just means they are going to attack the closest target to them. If you can confusing commands and then issue a 1-action tactic to get your allies away from the confused enemies, they're just going to start attacking each other, and that's insane. And by the way, if they failed their save against us, they're not immune. The moment confusion ends, you can do it again. They're only immune once they succeed against it, and that's broken. By the way, did I mention that this does not have the incapacitation trait? Can we talk about that? This doesn't have incapacitation. You can just confuse the boss. Peerless Mascot Companion. As usual, you can specialize your animal companion. However, commanders have an optional extra specialization they can pick from, the Peerless Mascot. If you choose the Peerless Mascot specialization, then your animal companion now functions as a second banner with its own 30-foot emanation. Or if you plant the banner on them, it becomes a 60-foot emanation, which is insane. It gains the beast trait, intelligence increases by 2, wisdom increases by 1, it becomes able to speak a language that you speak, it's trained in, it's expert in warfare lore? This thing is better at strategic planning than your barbarian probably. It gains more hit points, and it gains a land, swim, and climb speed, all equal to its highest available speed. This is an insane specialization, and if you're an animal companion commander, you're taking this feat. Demand surrender is okay. As long as you outnumber enemies on the battlefield and you reduced an enemy to 0 hit points in the last round, you can spend 2 actions to cause one creature to make a will save. This will save does have the incapacitation effect, so don't use this on a boss, but if they succeed, they can't hurt you for 1 round. They cannot take hostile actions against you, the commander, for 1 round. If they fail, it's the same, and they're fleeing, but if they critically fail, they drop all of their weapons, drop prone, cover their head, and do nothing for 1 full minute, or until you attack it again. But as long as you don't attack that enemy, they are basically out of the encounter for 10 rounds. This is a win more feat, which is why I'm not the biggest fan of it. You need to already basically be winning the fight. But if you are, and you want to be winning even more, you can just take another enemy out of the fight entirely, which could be helpful if you're outnumbering them but low on resources and hit points. But why take that when you can take Mercenary Reversal? For 2 actions, if you are outnumbered on the battlefield, you pick one of the enemies fighting you and say, hey, it'd be a lot cooler if you fought them with us. They make a will save against your class DC. If they critically succeed, nothing happens and they're immune for 24 hours. Wah. If they succeed, they consider your order and are stunned 1. If they fail, they gain the controlled condition and they'll fight for you. However, at the end of each of their turns, and every time you order it, it does get a follow-up saving throw to break the condition. Unfortunately, the critical failure doesn't make your controlled condition any stronger. It's still just as easy to break out, but if the battle ends, it thanks you for the opportunity to help you, gives you all of its monetary possessions, and leaves. I love this feat. It's so dumb. It doesn't even say you have to share a language. You're fighting a level 17 super crazy elemental. Hey! Don't!
Damn, you're right. Thanks. Have this shiny rock. Bye.
There's also practice reflexes. Each round you can now give out 4 free reactions instead of 2. That's insane. And the level 20 feats. You know I hate saying it. And I feel like it's like a 50-50 on whether a class has amazing level 20 feats or really lackluster level 20 feats. And I'll let you decide what the commander got. Glorious Banner. Your banner's emanation is now 60 feet, or 100 feet if it's on your Peerless Mascot companion. The status bonus to will saves increases to +2, and all of your allies gain a +1 bonus to armor class, fortitude saves, and reflex saves, and enemies in the aura take a -2 to will saves. That's it. Penance of Victory is a little bit more exciting. Once per 10 minutes for 1 action, you give all of your squad mates a +4 status bonus to attack rolls and damage rolls and 40 temporary hit points. That's pretty exciting. Not to mention they also get a 10-foot status bonus to all of their speeds. For 1 round, you just turn your allies into killing machines, which I'm sure can be comboed with some tactics for some insane output of damage. It just sucks that it's only for 1 turn once every 10 minutes. It's basically once per encounter, become killing machines. I think Pennant of Victory is infinitely more interesting than Glorious Banner. Glorious Banner with the animal companion is pretty cool. 100-foot emanation is insane. But overall, as usual, level 20 feats leave a little bit to be desired, which always feels weird, because then after being a little disappointed, I always have to say, and that's the Commander class. What do you think? It's got a lot of highs and a lot of lows. It's a really sort of like, I'm not imbalanced, it's not the right word, it's just there's a lot of good and a lot of bad. I'm curious to hear what you guys think. Have any of you played with the Commander since it released? Do you have any thoughts? It's tough to balance. You know, this is a class where half of what it does is makes other characters act when it's not their turn, and that's not easy to balance, let alone design in the first place. And I really do think Paizo did an excellent job with it. There's just a lot that could still be polished, but I don't know how easy it is to polish that in the game that exists today. Pathfinder is a very layered game, and this is a very layered class, and when you combine layers into layers, you get even more layers. Like an onion. But that's it for me. I want to give a huge shout out to Geek Tropical for sponsoring this video, as well as all the members of the No Net One's Patreon. Everyone on this list is supporting me, and I appreciate them so much. If you'd like to get your name on this list, you can click the link in the description to pledge for $1, $5, $10, or $20 a month. They all do the exact same thing, they just support me a little bit more. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And until next time, No Net Ones.